The crystal towers of Zephyria Prime gleamed under the light of twin suns as representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the great assembly hall. The building itself was a wonder of alien engineering, its walls made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. Today that light flickered with tension. Admiral Thexvar of the Kraxan Empire stood at the center podium, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. His red eyes scanned the assembled delegates as he spoke in the universal trade language. Fellow beings of the Galactic Council, we face a threat unlike any we have encountered in our peaceful expansion across the stars. The Hive Queen of the Zelakari clicked her mandibles in agreement. Her thousand-faceted eyes reflected the crystal light as she communicated through the neural link shared by her species. The humans multiply too quickly. Their ships appear in systems we thought empty. They ask too many questions about our military capabilities. Lord Commander Vexthran of the Voidlings floated silently above his designated space, his ethereal form shimmering like heat waves. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. They study us with the intensity of predators. Every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation, they probe for weaknesses. The ethereal consortium's ambassador Irix nodded her elongated head. Her people had evolved on a world of constant storms, and she still moved with the fluid grace of someone used to shifting winds. On my homeworld, we have learned that when a species studies another so carefully, it is preparing either to mate or to kill. Humans do not seem interested in mating with us. A ripple of nervous laughter passed through the assembly. It was not really funny, but fear often disguised itself as humor. Admiral Thexvar raised one of his hands for silence. 20 years ago, when we first encountered humanity, they seemed primitive. Their fastest ships barely achieved light speed. Their weapons were crude kinetic projectiles and simple energy beams. We welcomed them as younger siblings in the galaxy, eager to share our knowledge and bring them into the galactic community. The Aquatic Federation's representative, speaking through a water-filled communication sphere, added his concerns. Since then, they have established colonies in over 200 systems. They claim these are mining operations or research outposts, but their construction patterns suggest military installations. Their population growth defies biological norms, the Zelakari Hive Queen continued. When we achieved interstellar travel, our species had been stable for millennia. Humans breed like they are preparing for massive losses. Admiral Thexvar walked to the great viewing screen that dominated one wall of the assembly hall. With a gesture, he activated the display, showing star charts of human expansion. Red dots marked human settlements spreading like an infection across the galactic map. Look at their pattern of growth, he said. They do not expand randomly. Every system they choose has strategic value. Asteroid belts for raw materials, gas giants for fuel processing, defensive positions along major trade routes. This is not the expansion of explorers or colonists. This is the expansion of an army. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, sat quietly in her designated area. She was a small woman by human standards, with graying hair and kind eyes behind simple glasses. She had represented humanity for 15 years, always polite, always asking thoughtful questions, always taking careful notes. Now, as the accusations flew around her, she simply listened with a slight smile. The debate continued for hours. Species after species presented evidence of human military preparation, sensor readings of ships with unusual energy signatures, trade requests for materials commonly used in weapons manufacturing, diplomatic inquiries about defensive capabilities that seemed too detailed for casual curiosity. Finally, Admiral Thexvar called for the vote. All in favor of issuing an ultimatum to the human species, demanding they halt their expansion and submit to Galactic Council oversight? 12 hands, claws, tentacles, and energy fields rose in agreement. The vote was unanimous. Dr. Chen was invited to the center of the assembly hall. She walked slowly, her simple black shoes clicking softly on the crystal floor. When she reached the podium, she adjusted her glasses and looked around at the assembled representatives with that same gentle smile. Admiral Thexvar activated the quantum broadcast system that would carry his words instantly across the galaxy to Earth and every human settlement. Dr. Chen, by unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby ordered to cease all expansion activities immediately. You will dismantle your military installations and submit to Council oversight. Any human vessel found outside the Sol system will be considered an act of war. Dr. Chen nodded politely. I understand your concerns, Admiral. May I respond? You may. Dr. Chen turned to face the quantum broadcast array directly, knowing that her words would reach not just the alien representatives, but every human listening across hundreds of worlds. Her smile widened slightly, and for just a moment, something predatory flickered in her kind eyes. My fellow humans, she said in perfect, unaccented English, the Galactic Council has decided that our expansion must end. They believe we have become too dangerous to remain free. She paused, her smile becoming almost cheerful. I told them we would consider their ultimatum carefully. On Earth, in the Emergency Command Center buried deep beneath the Rockies, General Harrison listened to the broadcast with his staff. When Dr. Chen spoke those words, he turned to his communications officer. Send the signal. Across human space, a single tone began to play, not the harsh wail of air raid sirens or the urgent beeping of emergency alerts. Instead, it was an almost musical sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Children in schools looked up from their lessons with excitement. Workers in orbital shipyards set down their tools and grinned. In the deep military complexes scattered across dozens of worlds, blast doors that had been sealed for 20 years finally opened. Dr. Chen was still speaking, her voice carrying clearly across the quantum link. We have lived in peace for 20 years. We have learned from you, traded with you, shared meals and stories with you. You have been wonderful teachers. Her smile never wavered. But you seem to have misunderstood something fundamental about humanity. She turned back to face the assembled aliens, her hands clasped behind her back in a pose that somehow seemed less diplomatic and more military. You see, we have never actually been at peace. We have simply been preparing. Admiral Thexvar's red eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I mean that humanity has been at war for its entire existence. We have fought each other, our environment, extinction itself. When you gave us the gift of knowing we were not alone in the universe, you also gave us the greatest gift of all, a common purpose. Dr. Chen's voice remained conversational, almost friendly. You gave us 20 years to get ready for you. We used every second. The crystal walls of the assembly hall seemed to pulse faster, picking up the increased heart rates and bioelectric activity of the alien delegates. Fear was a universal constant, and it tasted the same to living crystal whether it came from a Craxan warrior or a peaceful ethereal. Dr. Chen straightened her jacket and checked her watch, a simple digital device that seemed absurdly primitive in the high-tech assembly hall. I should return to Earth now. My government will want a full report of these proceedings. She paused at the podium and looked back at the frozen aliens. Oh, and Admiral Thexvar? You might want to check your fleet positions. I believe you will find some surprises waiting for you. As Dr. Chen walked calmly toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the stunned silence, the truth began to dawn on the Galactic Council. Humanity had not been caught unprepared by their ultimatum. Humanity had been waiting for it, and they were smiling because it was finally time to show the galaxy what 20 years of human preparation really meant. The Craxan fleet gathered at the edge of the neutral zone like a storm of metal and energy. Admiral Thexvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conquest of Stars, watching through the massive viewscreen as ships from across the galaxy joined his armada. Nearly 10,000 vessels had answered the Council's call to arms. Sleek voidling ships that seemed to bend light around them, massive aquatic Federation spheres filled with water and bristling with bioweapons. The geometric perfection of ethereal consortium craft that looked more like mathematical equations than spacecraft. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Surely Admiral Thexvar thought it would be enough to bring one young species to heel. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we are receiving strange readings from the Sol system. What kind of readings? Energy signatures that do not match our records of human technology. The humans appear to have significantly more ships than our intelligence suggested. Admiral Thexvar frowned, his four eyes focused on the tactical display showing the outer edge of human space. According to their information, humanity possessed perhaps 300 military vessels, most of them converted civilian craft. It should be a simple matter to overwhelm them. How many ships are we detecting? The tactical officer's mandibles clicked nervously. Approximately 7,000, sir. And sir? They are not where our intelligence said they would be. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Persistence. watching her crew work with practiced efficiency. Around her ship, what had appeared to be simple mining platforms for 20 years were transforming. Massive industrial equipment folded away to reveal weapon systems that made the alien ships look like toys. Status report, she called. Out. All mining platforms have completed. Transformation to battle. Configuration, her weapons officer reported. The series defense grid is online. All asteroid fortresses are reporting ready. Elena smiled grimly. The aliens had been so focused on watching Earth's shipyards that they had completely missed the real construction project. For 20 years, humanity had been hollowing out asteroids, turning them into mobile weapons platforms. What the galaxy thought was simple mining had actually been the construction of the largest military complex in known space. Communications. Open a channel to the Kraxon flagship. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Thexvar's surprised face. His red eyes widened as he took in the sight of Elena's bridge. Behind her, displays showed tactical information that should have been impossible for humans to possess. Complete fleet compositions of every Galactic Council species, detailed technical specifications of their weapons and shields, even personal psychological profiles of their commanding officers. Admiral, Elena said pleasantly, I am Commander Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force. I believe you are looking for us. How did you obtain classified military intelligence on Council species? Thexvar demanded. Elena's smile widened. The same way we obtain samples of your hull materials, recordings of your internal communications, and detailed scans of every ship that has visited Earth in the past 20 years. Every time you came to our world for diplomatic meetings, cultural exchanges, or trade negotiations, you were actually conducting intelligence-gathering operations. She leaned forward slightly. So were we. On the surface of Mars, what had appeared to be agricultural domes for 2 decades suddenly sprouted defensive turrets. The red planet had been transformed into a fortress world, its entire surface covered with hidden military installations. Massive hangar bays opened to release fighter squadrons that had been built in secret underground factories. This is impossible, Admiral Thexvar said, staring at the tactical display that showed human military assets appearing throughout their own space. Our intelligence indicated that Mars was a farming colony. It is, Elena replied. We grow food there. We also manufacture weapons, train soldiers, and coordinate military operations across 200 systems. Humans are very good at multitasking. The truth was beginning to dawn on the Galactic fleet. Humanity had not been caught off guard by the ultimatum. They had been expecting it for 20 years. On Europa, beneath the ice-covered ocean, Admiral Jackson commanded the Terran submarine fleet from his flagship Deep Hunter. His ships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, spacecraft designed to operate underwater, in the depths of space, or within the crushing atmospheres of gas giants. They had been built by a species that had learned to fight in every possible environment. On their hostile homeworld, all submarines report ready for deep space operations. His tactical officer announced. Admiral Jackson nodded. The galaxy thought in 2 dimensions, ships fighting ships in the emptiness of space. But humans had spent centuries learning to fight in 3 dimensions, hiding beneath ocean surfaces and striking from unexpected angles. Space was just another ocean to them, and they had learned to use every bit of cover it offered. Take us to hunting depth, Jackson ordered. Time to show them what human submarine warfare looks like in space. The human ships began to move, and the Galactic fleet finally understood the scope of their mistake. These were not converted civilian vessels or hastily armed merchant ships. These were purpose-built warships designed by a species that had been perfecting the art of killing for thousands of years. The human dreadnoughts were massive, heavily armored behemoths that could absorb tremendous damage while delivering devastating firepower. Their destroyers were fast and deadly, designed to strike quickly and disappear before their enemies could respond. Their fighters moved in coordinated swarms that seemed to think as one mind while maintaining individual creativity. But most disturbing of all was their behavior. The humans were not afraid. They were not angry. They were excited. Commander Vasquez opened another communication channel, this time to the entire Galactic fleet. Attention all Council vessels. You have entered Terran space with hostile intent. By the laws of war recognized throughout the galaxy, you have committed an act of aggression against a sovereign species. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw beyond the edge of our territory. And if we refuse? Admiral Thexvar asked. Elena's expression became something that would haunt the Admiral's dreams for years to come. It was not cruel or angry. It was the look of a predator that had been waiting patiently for its prey to finally venture within striking distance. Then you will learn why every species on Earth that tried to make war on humans is now extinct, she said softly. And Admiral, we have been studying your species for 20 years. We know exactly how Kraxan warriors think, how you fight, and what you fear. We know that you believe individual glory in battle is more important than tactical coordination. We know that your armor is strongest on the front but weak at the joints. We know that your reaction time slows when you become angry. She paused, letting that sink in. We know everything about you. The question is, what do you know about us? Admiral Thexvar looked at his tactical display, now showing human ships appearing throughout the system like stars becoming visible at twilight. He had brought the largest fleet in galactic history to intimidate one young species. Instead, he was beginning to suspect that he had brought his fleet into a carefully prepared trap. Sir, his communications officer reported, we are receiving a message from the human homeworld. Put it through. The image of General Harrison appeared on the screen. He was sitting calmly in what appeared to be a simple office, drinking coffee from a ceramic mug. Behind him, displays showed the positions of every ship in the galactic fleet. Admiral Thexvar, Harrison said pleasantly, welcome to the Sol system. I hope you find your stay educational. He took a sip of his coffee. Oh, and Admiral, your fleet's formation has a 15% weak spot on the port flank. Your supply ships are inadequately defended, and 3 of your commanders are arguing about battle tactics on an open channel we have been monitoring for the past 6 hours. Harrison set down his coffee mug and smiled. The same gentle smile Dr. Chen had worn in the council chambers. We have been preparing for this moment since the day we learned we were not alone. Thank you for finally giving us the opportunity to show the galaxy what human beings can do when we work together toward a common goal. The countdown timer on Admiral Thexvar's display showed 57 minutes remaining. Around him, his fleet of 10,000 ships suddenly felt very small and very vulnerable. Humanity had been waiting for this war, and they were ready. The 1-hour deadline expired with the silence of space itself. Admiral Thexvar had made his choice. The Galactic Council fleet held position at the edge of human territory, weapons powered and shields raised. 10,000 ships against 7,000. The odds should have been in their favor. Commander Elena Vasquez watched the enemy fleet from her position in the asteroid belt, her fingers drumming a slow rhythm on her command chair. 20 years of preparation had led to this moment, and she felt the familiar calm that came before battle. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their voices barely above whispers as they coordinated with units throughout the system. All stations report ready, her tactical officer announced. Very well, Elena said. Begin Operation Homecoming. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human fleet did not charge forward in a glorious battle line as the aliens expected. Instead, they simply vanished. Admiral Thexvar stared at his tactical display in confusion. Where did they go? Unknown, sir. All human ships have dropped off our sensors. The Kraxan admiral felt a chill run through his forearms. His species were warriors, bred for direct combat. This disappearing act felt wrong, like fighting an enemy that refused to stand and face him. Begin the advance, he ordered. All ships proceed to Earth at battle speed. The Galactic fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their ships gleaming in the light of Sol. They expected to find human vessels waiting to defend their homeworld. Instead, they found empty space and the growing realization that they were flying into a trap. The first attack came from Neptune's orbit, where what the aliens had thought was a research station suddenly revealed itself as a massive weapons platform. Streams of kinetic projectiles moving at nearly light speed tore through the front ranks of the Galactic fleet. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before erupted in brief flares of light and debris. Impossible, Admiral Thexvar breathed. How are they achieving those velocities? His science officer's voice shook as he delivered the answer. Sir, they are using gravity wells as acceleration assists. The humans have turned their entire solar system into a weapon. The second wave of attacks came from the asteroid belt itself. What had appeared to be simple mining platforms began moving, revealing themselves as mobile weapons platforms with firepower that dwarfed anything in the Galactic fleet. Worse yet, they moved with perfect coordination despite being spread across millions of cubic kilometers of space. But it was the third wave that truly shattered galactic confidence. Human ships began appearing inside the enemy formation. Having somehow traveled through space without being detected, they struck with surgical precision, targeting command ships and communications, arrays before vanishing again into the void. Lord Commander Fex Thran of the Voidlings found his flagship surrounded by human vessels that seemed to materialize from empty space. His ethereal form flickered with distress as he tried to understand what was happening. "How are they moving undetected?" he asked his science team. "We believe they are using a combination of advanced stealth technology and unconventional flight paths," came the reply. "They appear to be traveling through areas of space we considered empty, but which contain sufficient matter to mask their approach." The humans were not fighting like any species the galaxy had encountered. They did not rely on superior technology or overwhelming numbers. Instead, they fought like a species that had spent millennia learning to defeat enemies who were bigger, stronger, and better armed. On the bridge of the Persistence, Commander Vasquez coordinated the battle with calm precision. Around her, displays showed the positions of every ship in both fleets, updated in real time by a network of sensors that had been secretly deployed throughout the solar system over the past 20 years. "Strike Team Alpha, you have a clear approach vector to the Aquatic Federation command sphere. Strike Team Beta, the ethereal consortium ships are vulnerable on their starboard flank. All units, remember, we are not trying to destroy them. We are trying to capture them." This was perhaps the most disturbing aspect of human warfare from the galactic perspective. The humans were not fighting to kill. They were fighting to win. Their weapons were precisely calibrated to disable enemy ships without destroying them. Their boarding parties moved with the efficiency of experienced soldiers who had done this countless times before. Captain Torres led one such boarding party onto a disabled Kraxan cruiser. His team moved through the alien ship's corridors with practiced ease, their weapons set to stun rather than kill. When they reached the bridge, they found the Kraxan crew huddled behind their stations, clearly expecting to be slaughtered. Instead, Captain Torres offered the enemy commander a cup of coffee. "I know your people prefer their beverages hot and bitter," he said in perfect Kraxan. "We learned about your food preferences during the cultural exchange programs." The Kraxan captain stared at him in confusion. "Why are you not killing us?" Torres smiled, the same gentle smile that seemed to be universal among humans. "Because dead enemies cannot surrender, and because we learned long ago that today's enemy can become tomorrow's ally if you treat them with respect." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human boarding parties took control of disabled alien ships. They provided medical aid to wounded crew members, offered food and water to prisoners, and treated their captives with a courtesy that completely bewildered the galactic forces. Admiral Thexvar found himself a prisoner aboard a human ship after his flagship was disabled by a precisely targeted strike that left his crew unharmed but his weapon systems inoperative. He sat in what appeared to be a comfortable meeting room, facing Commander Vasquez across a simple wooden table. "I do not understand," he said. "Your weapons could have destroyed my ship. Why did you not?" Elena poured herself a cup of tea from a simple ceramic pot. The gesture was so ordinary, so domestic that it seemed absurd in the context of the largest space battle in galactic history. "Because we are not monsters, Admiral," she said. "We are human beings. We fight when we must, but we do not kill when we do not have to." She offered him a cup of tea, which he accepted with confusion. "Your people are warriors. I respect that. But you have forgotten something that humanity learned long ago. The purpose of war is peace. You speak of peace while destroying my fleet." Admiral Thexvar protested. "We are not destroying your fleet," Elena corrected gently. "We are capturing it. Every ship we disable, we repair. Every crew member we capture, we treat as an honored guest. When this war is over, you will take your ships and your people home safely." The Admiral stared at her in amazement. "Why?" Elena's smile carried the weight of human history. Thousands of years of warfare, conquest, and the hard-learned wisdom that came from surviving it all. "Because we know something the galaxy seems to have forgotten. Today's enemy can become tomorrow's friend, but only if they survive today." The Battle of Neptune's orbit lasted 3 days. When it was over, the galactic fleet was defeated. but not destroyed. Nearly 5,000 enemy ships sat disabled but intact, their crews alive and unharmed. The remaining vessels had fled back toward galactic space, carrying word of humanity's unexpected victory. But the real shock came when the humans began repairing the captured ships and providing supplies for the journey home. Admiral Thexvar found himself standing in the hangar bay of his own flagship, watching human engineers work alongside his crew to restore his ship's systems. "I still do not understand," he told Commander Vasquez. "You have won a great victory. Why do you not keep our ships as trophies? Why do you not hold us as slaves?" Elena stood beside him, watching her people work. "Because that is not who we are, Admiral. We fight to protect what we love, not to conquer what others love. Your people are not our enemies. Your leader simply made a mistake." She turned to face him, and he saw something in her eyes that he had never encountered before. Not pity or contempt, but genuine respect for a worthy opponent. "Go home, Admiral," she said. "Tell the galaxy what you have learned here. Tell them that humanity does not seek conquest or domination. We seek only the right to exist and grow in peace. But if threatened, we will defend ourselves with everything we have." Admiral Thexvar nodded slowly, beginning to understand. The humans had not just won a military victory. They had won something far more valuable, the respect of their enemies and the foundation for a lasting peace. As the repaired galactic ships prepared to depart, carrying their crews safely home, word spread throughout the galaxy of humanity's strange victory. They had fought like demons and shown mercy like angels. They had demonstrated the capacity for both devastating warfare and profound compassion. The galaxy was learning that humanity was far more dangerous than they had imagined, not because of their weapons, but because of their wisdom. The news of the defeated Sol reached the Galactic Council homeworlds like a shockwave through quantum space. Species that had lived in peace for millennia suddenly found themselves facing the reality that their combined fleets had been defeated by a single world, that they had dismissed as primitive. On the crystalline world of Zephyria Prime, the emergency sessions continued around the clock. The surviving fleet commanders reported impossible things. Humans who fought with tactics no single species could have developed, technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics, and, most disturbing of all, mercy shown to defeated enemies. But the real terror began when human ships started appearing in galactic space. The first reports came from the Craxan border worlds. Mining stations and communication relays simply vanished overnight, their crews found safely aboard automated pods with notes thanking them for their cooperation and requesting they remain calm. The installations themselves had been captured intact, but moved to unknown locations. Admiral Kethvar of the 2nd Craxan Fleet received the distress calls at his fortress world of Grimhold, a planet that had never fallen to enemy attack in 3,000 years of warfare. His red eyes blazed with fury as he reviewed the reports. "How many ships?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. The attacks are coordinated across 17 systems, but we detect no large fleet movements. It is as if they appear from nothing, strike and vanish again." Kethvar slammed his fist on the command table. "Ghost stories and children's tales. No fleet can move unseen across such distances." His answer came in the form of alarms screaming throughout Grimhold's command center. On the tactical display, human ships were materializing around the fortress world like stars appearing at sunset. Not hundreds of ships, but thousands. They had somehow moved an entire fleet across galactic space, without being detected by any of the sensor networks that monitored the space lanes. Captain Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the human stealth carrier, Shadowwalker, watching the Craxan Fortress world through her tactical display. Around her ship, the rest of Strike Fleet 7 held position in perfect silence, their advanced stealth systems rendering them invisible to Craxan sensors. "All units report ready," her tactical officer announced. Sarah nodded. The humans had learned long ago that the key to defeating a superior enemy was to avoid fighting them on their terms. The Craxans were warriors who believed in direct confrontation. They expected their enemies to announce themselves with trumpet calls and battle cries before charging into glorious combat. Instead, humanity had spent 20 years perfecting the art of invisible warfare. "Begin Operation Shepherd," Sarah commanded. What followed was not a battle in any sense the galaxy would recognize. Human Special Forces teams materialized inside Craxan installations, as if they had walked through solid walls. They moved through fortress corridors with the quiet efficiency of hunters, disabling security systems and communications. A raise before the defenders even knew. They were under attack. The Kraxan garrison at Grimhold found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to know their fortress better than they did. Human soldiers appeared in areas that should have been impossible to reach, moved through ventilation systems that were too small for normal beings, and struck with weapons that disabled rather than destroyed. Admiral Cathavar barricaded himself in his command bunker, surrounded by his elite guards. The massive blast doors were designed to withstand orbital bombardment, and the communication systems were hardened against all known forms of electronic warfare. He was therefore surprised when a human woman simply walked through the wall. Major Lisa, Chen, no relation to the ambassador, stood in the center of the command bunker wearing what appeared to be standard infantry armor. Behind her, more human soldiers emerged from walls, floors, and ceilings like ghosts becoming solid. How is this possible? Admiral Cathavar demanded, raising his weapons. Lisa smiled, the same gentle smile that seemed to be a human trademark. Phase technology, Admiral. We learned to walk through solid matter about 15 years ago. Turns out it is very useful for getting past defenses that assume enemies will come through doors. The Kraxan guards opened fire, their energy weapons blazing. The beams passed harmlessly through the human soldiers, who flickered like holograms before becoming solid again. You cannot fight what you cannot touch, Lisa observed. She gestured to one of her soldiers, who stepped forward carrying what looked like a simple briefcase. Admiral, your fortress is now under human control. Your garrison is unharmed but contained. Your ships are disabled but intact. You have a choice. She opened the briefcase, revealing communication equipment. You can contact your high command and order a general ceasefire, or you can watch us repeat this operation on every Kraxan world until your entire empire is under our protection. Admiral Cathavar stared at her in confusion. Protection? Did you think we came here to conquer you? Lisa asked. Admiral, we do not want your worlds or your people as slaves. We want you to stop trying to kill us. There is a difference. Similar scenes were playing out across Kraxan space as human strike teams captured fortress after fortress, with minimal casualties. The warriors who had prided themselves on their military might found themselves outmaneuvered by an enemy who refused to fight, fair and seemed to know their every weakness. But the humans were not limiting themselves to military targets. On the ethereal consortium's capital world, Ambassador Irix found herself in an impossible situation. Human negotiators had simply appeared in her private office, bypassing security systems that relied on energy field detection. Madam Ambassador, the lead negotiator said politely, we would like to discuss terms for ending this conflict. Irix floated above her crystalline desk, her ethereal form shimmering with distress. How did you penetrate our defenses? The same way we have been studying your people for 20 years, the human replied. Every time you visited Earth for diplomatic meetings, we learned about your technology, your culture, and your weaknesses. Did you know that ethereal energy fields are vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies? We discovered that during a cultural exchange program 5 years ago. The truth was beginning to dawn on the galaxy. Humanity had not just been preparing for war, they had been preparing for war against specific enemies. Every species that had contacted Earth over the past 20 years had unknowingly provided the humans with detailed intelligence about their capabilities. On the aquatic world of Oceanos, the Aquatic Federation's military commanders found their underwater cities surrounded by human submarines that moved through their oceans like they belonged there. The vessels were clearly designed by a species that understood three-dimensional warfare in ways that single-environment species could not match. Admiral Deepcurrent of the Federation Navy tried to coordinate his defenses from the capital city of Coral Gardens, but the human submarines moved like predators that had spent centuries perfecting underwater warfare. Sir, the humans are requesting communication, his tactical officer reported. The main viewing sphere activated, showing the interior of a human submarine. The captain was a weathered man with kind eyes who looked completely at home in the underwater environment. Admiral Deepcurrent, Captain Morrison said, I am commanding Task Force Neptune. We have your cities surrounded, but we have not attacked. We would like to discuss terms. You invade our world and speak of terms? Deepcurrent demanded. Morrison's expression remained calm. Admiral, we are not invading. We are demonstrating. Your people live in the ocean depths. Humans have been fighting in oceans for thousands of years. We know how to conduct underwater warfare in ways your species never developed, because you never had to fight each other. He paused. We could have destroyed your cities from a distance. Instead, we are offering you the chance to surrender with honor. The pattern was repeating across galactic space. Human forces appeared where they should not have been able to go, fought in ways the galaxy had never seen, and offered terms that confused their enemies. They did not demand tribute or territory. They simply wanted the war to end. The Zelakari hive minds, accustomed to perfect coordination among their billions of members, found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to predict their every move. Human tactical computers had analyzed 20 years of Zelakari communication patterns and could anticipate hive decisions before they were made. Queen Prime Zel-Thara, the supreme coordinator of the Zelakari military, received human negotiators in her hive palace on the world of Synaptic Nexus. The humans sat calmly in chairs that had been quickly brought for them, completely surrounded by billions of warrior drones. Your coordination is impressive, the lead human negotiator observed, but also predictable. When all minds think as one, they often overlook possibilities that individuals might consider. You cannot defeat the unity of the hive, Queen Prime Zel-Thara declared, her mental voice echoing through the chamber. The human smiled. We do not need to defeat it. We need to understand it. And we do. She activated a small device, and suddenly the hive mind was filled with confusing signals that disrupted their perfect coordination. Warrior drones stopped in mid-flight. Workers abandoned their tasks, and the entire hive network descended into chaos. How? The Queen Prime demanded. The war ended not with surrender documents or victory parades, but with something the galaxy had never seen before, a voluntary gathering of former enemies who came together to discuss peace. The crystal towers of Zephyria Prime gleamed under. The twin suns as representatives from across the galaxy returned to the great assembly hall. But this time, the atmosphere was different. The living crystal walls pulsed with a warm golden light instead of the nervous blue flicker that had marked the previous gathering. Fear had been replaced by something else: respect, curiosity, and the tentative hope that perhaps the galaxy could be something better than it had been. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the same corridors she had left just months ago, but now she was accompanied by a delegation that included military officers, scientists, and diplomats from Earth. Her simple black shoes clicked on the crystal floor with the same quiet confidence, but now the sound echoed differently. It was no longer the footstep of a lone ambassador trying to keep peace. It was the sound of humanity taking its place as an equal member of the galactic community. Admiral Thexvar stood waiting for her at the entrance to the assembly hall. His forearms were no longer crossed defensively, and his red eyes held something that would have been impossible to imagine before the war: genuine respect for the small human woman who had warned them what was coming. Dr. Chen, he said, offering the traditional Kraxan greeting of open palms. We have much to discuss. Indeed we do, Admiral, she replied, returning the gesture with practiced ease. But first, how are your people? I trust the repairs to your fleet were satisfactory. Thexvar's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was the Kraxan equivalent of laughter. More than satisfactory. Your engineers improved our systems while they repaired them. Our ships are now more efficient than they were before the battle. This had become a pattern across the galaxy. Human technical teams, working to repair the ships they had captured, had quietly upgraded alien technology in the process, not with weapons or military systems, but with improvements to life support, navigation, and communication equipment. It was, as one human engineer had explained, simply good manners to return something in better condition than you had found it. The assembly hall filled with beings from across the galaxy, but the seating arrangement had changed. Instead of species grouped separately in defensive clusters, the delegates were mixed together. Humans sat beside Kraxan warriors, ethereal beings floated next to aquatic Federation spheres, and Zelakari hive minds shared space with voidling energy forms. Dr. Chen took her place at the center podium, the same spot where Admiral Thexvar had issued humanity's ultimatum. But instead of accusations and threats, the atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. Fellow beings, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the crystal chamber, we are here today not as conquerors and conquered, but as neighbors who have learned something important about each other. Lord Commander Vexthron of the Voidlings shimmered into visibility above his designated area. Dr. Chen, I must ask, how long did your species know this war was inevitable? Sarah smiled the gentle smile that had become humanity's trademark. From the moment we learned we were not alone in the universe, Commander. When we realized there were other intelligent species among the stars, we had to consider the possibility that not all of them would be friendly, but we hoped we were wrong. Queen Prime Zelthara of the Zelakari spoke through her neural link, her words appearing as text on the chamber's translation screens. You prepared for war while speaking of peace. How can we trust such deception? Because, Dr. Chen replied, peace without the ability to defend it is just surrender waiting to happen. We prepared for war so that we could have peace. The fact that you threatened us simply confirmed that our preparations were necessary. Admiral Kethvar, who had been captured at Grimhold, stood to address the assembly. His warrior's pride had been wounded by his defeat, but his respect for his captors had grown during his time as their prisoner. I have seen human military installations, he announced. I have been treated by human medical teams. I have eaten at human tables and spoken with human soldiers. They are the most dangerous species I have ever encountered. Not because of their weapons, but because of their wisdom. He paused, his forearms gesturing to encompass the entire assembly. They could have conquered us all. Instead, they chose to teach us. Ambassador Irix of the Ethereal Consortium floated forward, her elongated form shimmering with the emotions her people experienced in place of physical sensations. What did they teach you, Admiral? That war is not about destroying your enemies, Kethvar replied. It is about making them your friends. The assembly fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Around the galaxy, the effects of the war were becoming clear. Worlds that had been isolated for centuries were now connected by human communication networks. Species that had never cooperated were working together on joint projects. Technologies that had been hoarded were being shared freely. Dr. Chen activated the great viewing screen that dominated one wall of the chamber. Instead of showing territorial boundaries or fleet positions, it displayed something unprecedented, a map of cooperative projects between species. This is what we propose, she said. Not conquest, not domination, but partnership. Humans bring our experience with conflict resolution and our talent for seeing possibilities where others see problems. In return, we learn from your sciences, your arts, your unique perspectives on existence. The display showed joint research stations where human engineers worked alongside ethereal energy specialists. Agricultural worlds where human farming techniques were combined with aquatic federation biocultivation. Military academies where human tactical doctrine was being taught to species that had forgotten how to fight. But why? Admiral Deepcurrent of the Aquatic Federation asked from his water-filled communication sphere. Your species has proven it can dominate us all. Why choose cooperation over conquest? Sarah's expression became serious, and for a moment the assembled beings glimpsed the steel beneath her diplomatic courtesy. Because we learned something long ago, Admiral. Conquest creates slaves. Cooperation creates allies, and allies are far more valuable than slaves. She gestured to the mixed seating arrangement around her. Look around you. A few months ago, you were 12 separate species who barely tolerated each other. Now you are working together, sharing knowledge, building something greater than any one species could achieve alone. The truth of her words was evident throughout the chamber. Kraxon warriors were discussing tactical theory with human soldiers. Ethereal scholars were comparing notes with human scientists. Zelakari hive minds were learning about individual initiative from human philosophers. General Harrison, attending his first Galactic assembly, stood to address the gathering. Dr. Chen speaks truly, but she understates our position. The war is over and we won. That means we have responsibilities now. His words caused a stir throughout the assembly. The idea that victory brought responsibilities rather than privileges was foreign to most galactic species. Humanity will establish defense stations throughout galactic space, Harrison continued, not to control your movements but to protect against external threats. We will share our military technology with any species that request it, not to arm them for war, but to ensure that no one feels threatened by their neighbors. He paused, surveying the assembled beings. And we will continue to study you all, not to find weaknesses to exploit but to learn how to be better neighbors. Queen Prime Zelthara's mental voice carried a note of confusion. You speak of external threats. What enemies does the galaxy face that we do not know about? Dr. Chen's smile faded slightly, and the assembly felt a chill as they realized that humanity's knowledge extended beyond their local galactic community. The galaxy is vast, and we have detected signals from beyond our current borders. Not all species develop the same way we have. Some may choose conquest over cooperation. The implications of her words sent ripples of concern through the crystal chamber. The galaxy had been so focused on their internal conflicts that they had not considered what might be waiting in the darkness beyond their explored space. But that is a concern for another day, Sarah continued, her smile returning. Today, we are here to formalize something new. Not a treaty between enemies, but a charter for friends. The document that emerged from the assembly was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of territorial boundaries and trade restrictions, it established principles of mutual support, shared defense, and cooperative exploration. Most importantly, it recognized that diversity of thought and approach was not a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be celebrated. When the signing ceremony concluded, the assembled beings did not depart immediately to their homeworlds. Instead, they lingered, continuing conversations that had begun during the negotiations. Scientists made plans for joint research projects. Military officers discussed training exchanges. Diplomats explored cultural programs that would help their peoples understand each other better. Dr. Chen stood at the great viewing window, watching the sunset paint Zephyria Prime's crystal towers in shades of gold and amber. Admiral Thexvar joined her, his forearms now relaxed at his sides. The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched high above the assembled delegates. 847 different species filled the curved seating areas, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had wings, others tentacles. But today they all shared one common goal. They wanted humanity gone. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin sat alone in the center circle, her human form looking small and fragile compared to the towering aliens around her. The Zephyrian delegate, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, spoke first. Its voice rang out like wind chimes in a storm. The human species has proven itself incompatible with galactic civilization, it announced. They wage war for sport. They compete in everything. They cannot accept peace. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The crystalline collective's representative, a living mountain of purple gems, added its voice. Humans watch violence for entertainment. They celebrate conflict. Their children play games of war. This is barbarism, more voices joined in. The ethereal communes, beings of thought and light, complained about human emotions. They feel too much, too strongly. Love, hate, anger, joy, and all in extreme measures. They bring chaos wherever they go. Chen listened to each accusation with a calm face. She had expected this day for years. Humanity had always been different from the other species in the galaxy. While others sought harmony and balance, humans pushed boundaries. While others followed rules, humans asked why the rules existed. The hegemony delegate, a massive creature with 4 arms and scaled skin, stood up. They expand too quickly, build too much, take too many risks. In 50 years, they have colonized more worlds than most species manage in 500. They ask too many questions, added the representative from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance. They want to know how everything works. They take apart our technology just to understand it. They have no respect for the unknown. Chen finally stood up. The chamber fell silent as she activated her translator and spoke in clear, simple words. You are afraid of us, she said. The silence stretched longer. Then the Zephyrian delegate responded, We are not afraid. We are concerned. Humanity does not fit with our way of life. You are afraid, Chen repeated, because we do things you cannot do. Because we take risks you will not take. Because we grow while you stay the same. The ethereal representative's form flickered with annoyance. This is exactly what we mean. Humans always think they are better than others. They have no humility. Chen smiled a small, sad smile. We never said we were better. We just said we were different. But you cannot accept different. President Veltar, the council's leader, raised his tentacles for silence. His species had founded the council 3,000 years ago. They prized order above all else. The vote will now commence, he announced. All in favor of exiling humanity from galactic space? One by one, the votes came in. The crystalline collective voted yes. The ethereal communes voted yes. The peaceful worlds voted yes. Even species that had traded with Earth for decades voted yes. Chen watched the vote counter climb. 831 species voted to exile humanity. 15 abstained, too afraid to take either side. Only one species voted against the exile, the small insect-like hive collective, who had always appreciated human industriousness. When the voting ended, President Veltar turned to Chen. The decision is final. Humanity must leave all council space within one standard solar cycle. All treaties are void. All trade agreements are cancelled. All military cooperation ends immediately. Chen stood up slowly. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. Some looked satisfied. Others looked uncomfortable. A few even looked sad. "The representative from Earth accepts this decision," she said in a voice that carried clearly through the dome. "We formally give up our membership in the Galactic Council, starting right now." The chamber began to buzz with conversation, but Chen was not finished. "We will leave council space within one solar cycle as you have demanded," she continued. "Consider this our official notice that we are ending all treaties, trade agreements, and defense pacts with council members." She paused and smiled. It was not a sad smile anymore. It was something else entirely. "Thank you for making this choice easy for us." The buzzing stopped. Delegates looked at each other with confusion. What did she mean by that? Chen activated her wrist communicator. "This is Ambassador Chen to all human vessels and stations. Execute Protocol Omega. Authorization Chen 77 Alpha. Begin immediate withdrawal from all council space." She looked up at the watching aliens. "We have been planning for this day longer than you know. Operation Exodus begins now." President Veltar's tentacles writhed with sudden worry. "What is Protocol Omega?" "Goodbye," Chen said simply. She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. As she reached the door, she turned back one more time. "You wanted us gone because we were too different, too aggressive, too unpredictable. You thought exiling us would solve your problem?" She smiled again, and this time several delegates actually shivered at the expression. "You have no idea what you just did." Chen walked out of the chamber and into the transport bay where her ship waited. As she climbed aboard, she could hear the chaos beginning behind her as delegates realized what they had really voted for. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to live without humanity. Her ship's communication system was already buzzing with reports from across the galaxy. Human colonies were powering down their transmitters. Trade stations were beginning evacuation procedures. Military bases were activating their self-destruct sequences. "Admiral Martinez to Ambassador Chen," came a voice over the comm. "All fleets report ready for Phase 1 withdrawal. Awaiting your orders." Chen settled into her captain's chair and looked out at the stars beyond the council station. Somewhere out there, beyond the galaxy's edge, lay humanity's future. A future they would build themselves without asking permission from anyone. "Begin the withdrawal," she ordered. "All units execute Exodus protocols. We are going home." But home was not Earth anymore. Home was wherever humanity chose to make it, and they had already chosen a place the galaxy had never seen. In the dark spaces between the stars where no council member had ever dared to go, the great ships began to move, carrying humanity away from the galaxy that had rejected them. But as they flew toward the unknown, Chen could not help but wonder if the council understood what they had just lost. They would find out soon enough. The age of humanity in galactic space was over. But the age of humanity in the universe had just begun. The galaxy expected humanity to beg. They expected protests, desperate appeals, maybe even some humans trying to stay behind by renouncing their citizenship. What they got instead was the most organized disappearing act in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Voss stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching holographic displays show the systematic withdrawal of human assets from across known space. Around her, officers coordinated the largest evacuation ever attempted. Every human ship, station, colony, and outpost was moving according to plans that had been prepared in secret for over a decade. Status report from Sector 7, called Lieutenant Commander Torres from his station. "The Centauri colonies have completed mineral extraction. Generation ships are loaded and ready for jump. Tau Ceti research stations report all data uploaded to quantum cores," added another officer. Demolition charges are set for controlled destruction. Voss nodded. The galaxy would find empty shells where human installations once thrived, not destroyed out of spite but carefully dismantled. Humans never wasted resources, and they were not about to start now. What about New Geneva? She asked. Dr. Marcus Webb's face appeared on the main screen, transmitted from humanity's largest off-world colony. Behind him, massive cargo haulers could be seen lifting off from the planet's surface in an endless stream. "We are taking everything," Webb reported. "Atmospheric processors, fusion reactors, medical equipment, even the modified soil bacteria we developed for the terraforming project. The colony will be completely stripped within 18 hours. Any volunteers to stay behind?" Voss asked, though she already knew the answer. Webb shook his head. "Not one. Every human wants to leave." We all knew this day might come. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out on hundreds of worlds. Human traders closed their shops and loaded their inventory. Human researchers backed up their data and destroyed their laboratories. Human diplomats packed their files and canceled their meetings. The speed of it all caught the aliens completely off guard. They had expected humans to plead for more time, to argue about logistics, to create delays and complications. Instead, human space emptied like water flowing out of a broken dam. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, Zephyrian merchant Wind Whisper watched in growing panic as the human trading post shut down. The humans had been the main suppliers of rare earth elements to this sector for 30 years. "Wait," Wind Whisper called to the human supervisor. "What about our contract?" "We have orders to fill." The human, a middle-aged woman named Captain Rodriguez, looked up from her loading checklist. "Contract was with the Galactic Council member nation of Earth. We are no longer council members. Contract is void." "But we need those shipments," Wind Whisper protested. "Our people depend on them." Rodriguez shrugged. "You voted us out. Find another supplier." Similar conversations happened across the galaxy. The Crystalline Collective discovered that humans had been their only source of organic compounds needed for their reproduction cycles. The Peaceful Worlds found that human agricultural techniques had been feeding half their population. The ethereal communes realized that human technology had been maintaining their meditation networks for decades. But the humans just kept leaving, loading ship after ship with everything they had built in galactic space. President Veltar called an emergency session of the Council just 3 days after the vote. The chamber was in chaos as delegates reported the same thing from across their territories. "The humans are taking everything," reported the hegemony representative. "Our joint mining operations are shutting down. They are removing equipment we thought belonged to us." "Check your contracts," advised the representative from the Hive Collective, the only species that had voted against exile. Humans always read the fine print. If they are taking it, they own it. The truth was even worse than the Council feared. In 50 years of galactic membership, humans had not just traded with other species. They had become the backbone of galactic infrastructure. Human ships carried cargo between hostile species who refused to deal with each other directly. Human engineers maintained technology that other species considered too dangerous or complicated. Human soldiers kept peace in disputed areas because they were the only species trusted by all sides to be fair. Now all of that was disappearing. "Our shipping lanes are under attack," reported the Avian Coalition. "Pirates are raiding our vessels. The human patrol fleets that used to protect this sector have withdrawn. The terrorist group on Kepler 442 has resumed bombing campaigns," added the Mollusk Federation. Human peacekeepers were the only ones keeping them contained. President Veltar's tentacles writhed with growing anxiety. "How long until human withdrawal is complete?" Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She was now wearing a military uniform instead of diplomatic robes, and her expression was all business. "Honored council members," she said formally, "this is Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the Terran Colonial Fleet. I am transmitting to inform you that human withdrawal from galactic space is proceeding on schedule. All human personnel and assets will be removed within the mandated time frame. Admiral," President Veltar said carefully, "perhaps we could discuss transition periods for essential services. Some adjustments to the timeline." Chen's expression did not change. "The vote was final. The timeline is final. We are not interested in negotiations." "But surely some humans would prefer to remain," pressed the ethereal representative. "We could offer individual citizenship to humans who wish to stay." No human wishes to stay, Chen replied flatly. We are leaving. All of us. Forever. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. What they did not know was that humanity's withdrawal was only the beginning. As human ships gathered at the galaxy's edge, they were joined by others. Ships belonging to species that had never been invited to join the council, refugees from worlds the council had written off as lost, AI constructs that had achieved sentience but were denied recognition, pirates and rebels and outcasts from a dozen different civilizations. The humans had sent secret messages to every group the galaxy had rejected or forgotten. The message was simple: come with us. Help us build something better, and they came. In small groups at first, then in larger numbers as word spread. Species that had been turned away from the council for being too primitive or too dangerous. Artificial intelligences that had been denied rights. Hybrid species that did not fit into the council's neat categories. Admiral Voss watched the growing fleet from her bridge. Thousands of ships now moved together toward the galaxy's rim, carrying not just humanity but everyone the galaxy had deemed unworthy of membership. Where are we going? Asked Lieutenant Commander Torres. Voss smiled. Somewhere the council has never been. Somewhere they would never think to look. Somewhere we can build exactly what we want without asking permission from anyone. The great fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying humanity and its new allies away from the galaxy that had rejected them. Behind them, they left empty stations, abandoned colonies, and a growing crisis as the council slowly realized what they had lost. The galaxy would learn to function without human help. But it would take time, and not everyone would survive the transition. Humanity was gone. But they had not gone quietly, and they had not gone alone. 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy began to understand what they had really voted away. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades collapsed overnight. The human merchant fleet had been the connecting tissue of galactic commerce, carrying goods between species that refused to deal with each other directly. Without them, old grudges and territorial disputes made simple trade nearly impossible. President Zalthara of the Avian Coalition stood before the council chamber, his feathered crest drooping with exhaustion. His species had been one of the strongest supporters of human exile. Now he looked like he had not slept in weeks. Our shipping lanes are under constant attack, he reported. Pirate fleets have moved into the sectors that human patrols used to protect. We have lost 17 cargo vessels in the past month alone. Murmurs of similar problems rippled through the chamber. The crystalline collective had lost their main supply of organic compounds. The peaceful worlds were experiencing food shortages. The ethereal communes found their meditation networks failing without human-maintained technology. Where are the replacement patrol fleets? Demanded the hegemony representative. Surely other species can take over these duties. President Veltar's tentacles drooped as he consulted his reports. The Zephyrians consider patrol work beneath their spiritual calling. The Mechanical Union calculates that policing organic crime is inefficient. The Mollusk Federation lacks the ship designs for long-range patrol. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity had not just been another member species. They had been the glue that held galactic civilization together, taking on all the dirty, dangerous, thankless jobs that other species considered beneath them. But the immediate problems were just the beginning. Deep space monitoring stations along the galaxy's rim began reporting strange readings. Massive energy signatures appearing and disappearing beyond the galactic edge. Industrial activity on a scale that defied explanation. Ships of unknown design moving in formations too large to count. Commander Thex of the Outer Rim Defense Force brought the first solid evidence to the council. His patrol ship had been conducting routine sweeps when his sensors detected something impossible. The energy readings suggest construction activity, he reported to the assembled delegates. But the scale is beyond anything we have ever seen. Whatever is being built out there, it is larger than our biggest space stations. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Asked the ethereal representative hopefully. Thex shook his head. The patterns are too regular, too organized. Someone is building something massive in the void between galaxies. The question is who? Everyone in the chamber was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it out loud. The humans had vanished beyond the galactic rim 6 months ago. If they were responsible for the energy readings, it meant they were not just hiding in exile. They were building something. The answer came when a single ship appeared at the galaxy's edge. It was unlike anything in Council records. Sleek where Council ships were bulky. Elegant where Council designs were practical. It moved through space, with a grace that seemed to ignore the normal rules of physics. The ship broadcast a message on all frequencies in perfect galactic standard. The voice was human, female, and completely confident. "This is Captain Elizabeth Kane of the Human Colonial Fleet. We are broadcasting to inform the galaxy that the Terran Colonial Union formally claims all space beyond this galaxy's edge as sovereign territory. Any vessel approaching our borders will be met with appropriate response." The message repeated 3 times. Then the ship simply vanished. Not jumped to hyperspace, not cloaked. It was there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never existed. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions and accusations at each other. How had humans developed such advanced technology so quickly? What was the Terran Colonial Union? How many humans were out there? But the most important question was asked by the Hive Collective representative, the only species that had voted against human exile. What did they mean by appropriate response? The answer came 2 weeks later when a hegemony survey expedition decided to test humanity's new borders. 3 heavy cruisers crossed into the space that Captain Kane had claimed, expecting to find scattered human settlements that could be easily intimidated. Instead, they found Captain Rodriguez waiting for them in a ship that should not have been able to exist. Where hegemony vessels were massive and intimidating, her ship was sleek and predatory. It moved like a living thing, responding to her commands faster than thought itself. "Hegemony vessels, you have entered Terran Colonial Union space without permission," Rodriguez transmitted. "Reverse course immediately." The hegemony commander, a veteran of dozens of battles, laughed at the single human ship facing his 3 cruisers. "1 ship against 3? Human, you are either very brave or very stupid." "I prefer to think of it as very prepared," Rodriguez replied. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Rodriguez's ship moved like nothing the hegemony had ever seen. It phased through their shields as if they were not there. It disabled their weapons without destroying their ships. It captured their crews without killing anyone. The entire encounter lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, all 3 hegemony cruisers were drifting in space, completely powerless but undamaged. Their crews were unconscious but unharmed. Rodriguez's ship was untouched. Her final transmission to the hegemony was broadcast across the entire galaxy. "Your crews will be returned unharmed to the galactic border. Your ships will be returned disabled. This is your only warning. Cross our borders again and we will respond differently." The disabled cruisers were found drifting at the galaxy's edge 3 days later. The crews had no memory of what happened after they were captured. The ship's computers had been completely wiped. Even their weapon systems had been permanently disabled by some technology that left no trace of how it worked. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer the species that had been voted out of the Council 6 months ago. They had become something else entirely. Reports began filtering in from across the galaxy. Human ships were patrolling the rim, turning away any vessel that approached uninvited. They did not attack, but they made it very clear that the space beyond the galaxy was no longer open to Council members. More disturbing were the reports from Council intelligence services. Several member species had been secretly sending diplomatic missions toward the rim, hoping to establish contact with this new Terran Colonial Union. These missions never returned, but their crews were eventually found at various locations throughout Council space, with no memory of their journeys and no explanation of how they had gotten there. The humans were not hiding anymore. They were guarding something and they were very good at it. President Veltar called another emergency session of the Council. As delegates filed into the chamber, many of them looked haunted. The galaxy they had known for thousands of years was changing, and not in ways they could control or understand. "We need to discuss the human situation," Veltar announced to the assembly. "It appears that our former colleagues have become something more than we anticipated. The understatement of the millennium," thought many of the delegates. But none of them were ready to admit out loud that exiling humanity might have been the biggest mistake in galactic history. Outside the chamber's crystal windows, they could see ships preparing for departure. Not warships or exploration vessels, but transport ships filled with entire populations. More and more species were choosing to leave Council space entirely, seeking something better beyond the rim. They were going to join the humans, and none of them were coming back. Dr. Kenji Nakamura had always believed that knowledge belonged to everyone. It was a human philosophy that had gotten him in trouble with the Council more than once during his years at the Lunar Research Institute. Now, 18 months after humanity's exile, he was about to break the biggest rule of all. Nakamura sat in his laboratory aboard Haven Station, looking at the data packet he was preparing to transmit. The packet contained construction images, technical specifications, and progress reports that would show the galaxy exactly what humanity had accomplished in their exile. Sending it would violate every term of the exile agreement, but Kenji had never been one to follow rules that made no sense. His old colleague, the crystalline entity known as harmonic resonance, deserved to know the truth. They had worked together for decades on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. If anyone could appreciate what humanity had built, it would be resonance. Kenji activated the quantum transmitter and sent the packet into the void. Within hours, it would reach the galaxy's edge and then jump across space to Resonance's laboratory on Nexus Prime. The consequences for him personally did not matter. The truth was more important than his safety. The packet contained images that would have been impossible to believe 6 months earlier. In just 18 months, humanity had constructed 7 massive orbital habitats, each one larger than the Council's capital station. They had industrialized entire asteroid fields and built shipyards that dwarfed anything in galactic space. But the most important images showed something the galaxy had never expected. Humanity was not alone. The construction photos revealed beings the Council had never seen working alongside humans. Refugees from dying worlds that the Council had written off as lost causes. Outcasts from isolationist species that refused galactic contact. Artificial intelligences that had achieved sentience but been denied recognition by organic governments. Humanity's exile had become a beacon for every being the galaxy had rejected or forgotten. They came in small groups at first, drawn by messages humanity had sent to the darkest corners of space. The message was always the same: we will accept you as you are. Help us build something better. Admiral Chen Wei-Lin, now promoted from her diplomatic role to military command, stood in the observation deck of Haven Station, watching the latest group of refugees arrive. These were survivors from the Kepler system, where a civil war had been raging for decades while the Council debated whether to intervene. "How many this time?" asked Captain Martinez, her aide. 43,000, Chen replied. Mostly civilians, but some military personnel and their families. They have information about Council military capabilities that could be useful. Martinez nodded. The Integration Committee will process them within the week. Standard offer of citizenship, housing assignments, job placement. They will fit in well here. Chen smiled as she watched the refugee ships dock with the station's massive ports. Haven Station was humanity's greatest achievement, but it was no longer exclusively human. The rotating habitats housed dozens of species that had chosen exile over submission to the Council's rigid hierarchies. "Any word from the construction teams?" Chen asked. "Phase 7 is ahead of schedule," Martinez reported. "The shipyards are producing vessels at a rate that exceeds our most optimistic projections. The new Alliance members are contributing technologies we never imagined possible." That was the real secret of humanity's transformation. They had not just spent 18 months building infrastructure. They had spent 18 months learning from every species that joined them, combining technologies and ideas in ways the Council had never attempted. The Artificial Intelligence Collective had contributed quantum computing advances that made human computers look like stone tools. The refugee engineers from the Andromeda expedition had brought dimensional manipulation technology. The outcast scientists from a dozen different species had shared research that their home governments had banned as too dangerous. Together, they had created something unprecedented, a truly cooperative civilization where every species contributed their best abilities and received equal representation in return. "What about our newest arrivals?" Chen asked, referring to a group that had arrived just days earlier. Martinez consulted his tablet. "The Sentient Machine Collective is adapting well. Their manufacturing capabilities have increased our production efficiency by 30%. The genetic engineers from the failed colonies have already begun work on improving our terraforming techniques. Chen nodded, but her attention was drawn to something else visible through the observation window. In the distance, she could see the latest addition to humanity's growing fleet, ships that incorporated technology from all their alliance members. These were not the crude, functional vessels that had carried humanity into exile. They were works of art that happened to be the most advanced spacecraft ever constructed. Hull designs that seemed to flow like water, propulsion systems that bent space itself around them, weapons that could disable enemy vessels without destroying them. Most impressive were the defensive systems. The new ships could become invisible to sensors, phase through solid matter, or simply step outside normal spacetime when threatened. They were not just superior to Council technology. They were so far beyond it that comparison was meaningless. The Council still has no idea what we have become, Chen mused. Should we tell them? Martinez asked. Chen considered the question. The Terran Colonial Union now controlled resources and technology that could easily conquer the galaxy if they chose to. Their population had grown from humanity's original 47 billion to over 200 billion, as refugee species joined them. Their industrial capacity exceeded the entire Council's output, but conquest was not what they wanted. Not yet, Chen decided. Let them continue to think we are just hiding in exile. The longer they remain ignorant, the more time we have to perfect our society. She turned away from the window and walked toward the command center. Haven Station was impressive, but it was only the beginning. Beyond the station, construction crews were working on projects that would reshape the very nature of space travel and communication. The Dimensional Research Facility was developing methods to create permanent portals between distant locations, making travel across the galaxy instantaneous. The Temporal Studies Division was investigating ways to accelerate technological development by accessing knowledge from potential futures. The Consciousness Transfer Laboratory was working on methods to preserve the minds of dying species, giving them new forms of existence. These were projects the Council would have banned as too dangerous or too unethical. But the Terran Colonial Union had no such limitations. They were free to pursue any research that served the greater good of all member species. Admiral, came a voice from the communication station. We are receiving a priority message from our border patrols. A Council ship has been detected attempting to approach our territory. Chen walked to the communications console. What kind of ship? Appears to be a diplomatic vessel from the Avian Coalition. They are broadcasting a request for peaceful contact. Chen smiled. It was beginning. The galaxy was finally starting to realize that the Terran Colonial Union might be worth talking to, despite the exile, but they would do so on humanity's terms, not the Council's. Send a standard response, she ordered. All contact with the Terran Colonial Union must go through official diplomatic channels. If they want to talk, they can submit a formal request and wait for our response. It was a complete reversal of the old relationship. Once humanity had begged for acceptance from the galactic community. Now the galaxy was beginning to beg for acceptance from humanity. The difference was that humanity actually intended to say yes, eventually. But first, the galaxy needed to learn what it meant to live without the very thing they had voted to exile. Only when they truly understood what they had lost would they be ready to accept what humanity had become. The hegemony made their second mistake exactly 2 years after humanity's exile. They had learned nothing from their first encounter with human border patrol. 3 hegemony dreadnoughts, the largest warships in their fleet, crossed into Terran Colonial Union space with orders to establish a military base. General Kravak, the hegemony's most decorated commander, had convinced his government that the humans were bluffing about their defensive capabilities. One lucky victory does not make them invincible, he had argued before the Hegemony War Council. They are still just humans. We have ships, we have numbers, we have experience. Captain Rodriguez was waiting for them in the UES Defiance, a vessel that looked more like a living creature than a machine. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Energy patterns ran along its surface like veins of light. Hegemony vessels, you are in violation of Terran Colonial Union space. Rodriguez transmitted. You have 60 seconds to reverse course. General Kravak laughed as he studied the single ship facing his massive fleet. Each of his dreadnoughts carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human vessel was barely larger than one of his escort fighters. Human Captain, I am General Kravak of the Hegemony 5th Fleet. You will stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your government will answer for the illegal occupation of galactic territory. 50 seconds, Rodriguez replied calmly. Kravak activated his weapon systems. All 3 dreadnoughts targeted the human ship with enough concentrated fire to vaporize a space station. You have chosen poorly, human. 10 seconds, Rodriguez said. Her voice held no fear, no anger, no emotion at all, just professional courtesy. Fire, Kravak ordered. What happened next would be studied by military tacticians for generations, though they would never understand how it was possible. The Defiance simply was not there when the weapons fired. It had not moved, had not jumped to hyperspace, had not activated any kind of cloaking device. It existed in the same location but somehow occupied a different phase of reality. The hegemony weapons passed through empty space, striking nothing. Then the Defiance reappeared directly between the 3 dreadnoughts, and everything changed. Beams of energy emerged from the human ship, but they were unlike any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. They passed through the hegemony shields as if the shields did not exist, then precisely targeted specific systems on each dreadnought. Navigation systems failed. Weapons powered down. Life support switched to emergency backup. Communications went dead. In less than 30 seconds, the most powerful warships in the hegemony fleet were reduced to drifting hulks, but the crews were unharmed. Every life sign remained strong and stable. The humans had disabled 3 dreadnoughts without killing a single being. General Kravak found himself staring at a human face on his emergency screen. Rodriguez looked calm, almost bored. General Kravak, your vessels are disabled, but your crews are safe. You will be escorted to the galactic border and released. Your ships will be returned to hegemony space in the same condition, minus their ability to threaten anyone. How? Kravak whispered. How is this possible? Rodriguez smiled. It was not a cruel expression, just confident. You voted us out when you thought you did not need us. Did you really think we would spend 2 years hiding in a corner, feeling sorry for ourselves? Kravak's screen went dark. When he woke up 3 days later, he was in a medical facility on the hegemony homeworld with no memory of how he had gotten there. His 3 dreadnoughts were in orbit above him, completely repaired except for their weapon systems, which had been permanently fused into scrap metal. The message was broadcast across the galaxy within hours. Humanity was not hiding anymore. They had become something the Council had never imagined possible. Emergency sessions were called on dozens of worlds as governments tried to understand what they were facing. The humans were not conquering territory or making demands. They were simply protecting their borders with technology that made the galaxy's most advanced weapons look like primitive tools. But more disturbing were the reports from across Council space. Entire populations were disappearing overnight. Not captured or conquered, but voluntarily abandoning their homeworlds to seek passage beyond the galactic rim. The refugees came from every species and social class. Scientists who were tired of bureaucratic limitations on their research. Artists who wanted freedom to create without censorship. Soldiers who were exhausted by endless wars between council members. Ordinary citizens who had heard rumors of a place where everyone was equal regardless of their species or origin. They gathered at the galaxy's edge in massive refugee fleets, requesting permission to join the Terran Colonial Union. And permission was always granted. President Veltar called the most important council session in galactic history. As delegates filed into the crystal chamber, many of them looked like beings attending their own funeral. The galaxy they had ruled for thousands of years was crumbling around them. We must address the human situation, Veltar announced to the assembly. Our intelligence services estimate that over 50 billion beings have defected to the Terran Colonial Union in the past 6 months. Entire star systems are requesting permission to leave council space. The ethereal representative flickered with agitation. How is this possible? We offered them everything civilization could provide. Order, peace, stability, prosperity. But not freedom, said a new voice. Every head in the chamber turned toward the main display screen where a familiar face had appeared. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin looked older, more confident and completely unburdened by the need for council approval. Hello, former colleagues, she said with a smile that held no warmth. We have been monitoring your recent difficulties with great interest. It seems exile has been harder on you than on us. President Veltar rose from his chair, his tentacles writhing with barely controlled desperation. Ambassador Chen, the Council is prepared to discuss terms for readmission to Galactic Society. No. The single word echoed through the chamber like a death sentence. You voted us out when you thought you did not need us, Chen continued. You do not get to vote us back in when you discover you were wrong. The age of the Galactic Council is ending. The question is not whether humanity will return to galactic space. She paused, and her smile became something that made several delegates shiver. The question is whether the galaxy is ready to join us in building something better. What are you offering? Asked the Hive Collective representative, the only species that had originally voted against exile. True equality between species, Chen replied. Protection for the powerless instead of rule by the strongest. Freedom to grow and explore and become more than you ever thought possible. A voice for everyone instead of control by the few. And if we refuse? Demanded the hegemony representative. Chen shrugged. Then you continue as you are, fighting your little wars, maintaining your rigid hierarchies, slowly dying as the galaxy moves beyond your ability to control it. We will not conquer you. We do not need to. She gestured toward something off-screen. We are transmitting coordinates for species that wish to join the Terran Colonial Union. Individual worlds, not governments. Individual beings, not representatives. Come as you are, and discover what the galaxy looks like when everyone has a voice. You cannot just steal our populations, protested the Crystalline Collective. We are not stealing anyone, Chen replied. We are offering them a choice. Something you never did. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Through the crystal windows, they could already see ships changing course. Not toward the chamber, not toward the council's great capital stations, but toward the coordinates Chen had provided. Ships belonging to member species, carrying beings who had made their choice. They were going to join humanity, and none of them were coming back. President Veltar looked around the chamber at the empty seats where delegates should have been sitting. Half the council members had already left to return to their homeworlds, hoping to prevent mass defections. The other half sat in stunned silence, watching their civilization collapse around them. Outside, the exodus had already begun. The galaxy was finally ready to discover what they had lost when they voted humanity into exile, but it was too late to take the vote back. Humanity had found something better than membership in the Galactic Council. They had found the future,